Hi, I'm Jeremiah Minner. It's the last few days of March 2020 and the COVID-19 virus is out and about and keeping everybody indoors. There have been a lot of train on your own, training at home martial arts videos, and I've been asked to do one by the Colorado Academy of Martial Arts, so that's what you're watching. Thanks for taking a look. I'm going to be talking today about striking, and I've written a striking progression document here, which hopefully is available with the video that you're watching. It defines a couple things that I wanted to bring to your attention. First, we're going to be talking about striking. There's certainly a lot of other aspects of martial arts which are incredibly important and which we focus on intensely during our Seizan Ryu training. However, what I'm going to be talking about, and specifically today, is striking. So I've defined some assumptions and our objective, of course, and then 5 different training methods which I've seen used to train for striking, and some very specific advantages and disadvantages to each of those. It's important that you understand the advantages and disadvantages of the training methods that you are using so that you can put all the pieces together at the end to become a good striker. And if you are a Seizan Ryu student, there's an opportunity for you to do some homework at the end and film some stuff that you've done based on taking a look at this training that you can give back to one of the teachers in the system, and they can give you some feedback on it. All right, Marshall, we're going to talk about striking progression. So what I've done here is I have the about 3 pages worth of stuff that we're going to talk about, and I've broken down striking into different training methods. So the first training method that we're going to talk about is training without a partner. Now, for all of these training methods, we have some assumptions. Okay, in this case, our assumptions are going to be that we are striking against a single, standing, unarmed opponent, and there's no restrictions in mobility or visibility, and we're not just going to hit each other as hard as we can. Okay? So that's a lot of assumptions, but that gives us a good place to start from and to be able to work from. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. Our objective, what we want in the end, we want to be fast, accurate, powerful, defensive, be able to defend ourselves, and not dangerous to ourselves as we are closing or at close range. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right, so the first method we're going to talk about is training without a partner. So give me some examples of how we could train without a partner.
Shadow boxing.
Okay, what is shadow boxing?
Like boxing with on your shadow,
Yeah, so literally it was if the sun was behind me, I could be looking down at my shadow, and I could be using that as the form and the person that I'm imagining, and I could be boxing with my shadow. That's shadow boxing. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice some shadow boxing. One of the things that a lot of people will do is they'll use a mirror. Okay, and that way if I'm here looking in this mirror, I can do kind of a self-assessment in real time of what's going on and how I look. Does that make sense? Because if I'm not facing the mirror and my form is really bad as I'm boxing, my legs are too wide, my elbows are out, I might not feel that, so I might not be able to correct it on my own. But if I'm looking in the mirror and I at least know what I should be looking like, then I'll notice, gosh, that looks really bad. My feet are too far apart, maybe my hips are lined up wrong, so that I'm not facing my opponent. Maybe my elbows are out, maybe my chin is up as I'm doing my shadow boxing. Maybe my hands drop down. All of that can be corrected and looked at when you are looking into a mirror. So sometimes people will find a mirror and then they'll get into a good fighting stance and they'll pick some techniques to work. It doesn't have to be complex, so find me 2 techniques that you think we should work on. 2 strikes.
Left, right, and
okay.
Left, right kick.
Left, right, and left, right kick, or a short punch and a long punch, and then a short punch and long punch, and what kind of kick?
Roundhouse kick.
A roundhouse kick, okay. So we'll start off with just that left, right. We'll just take a couple seconds to be able to do it on their own. So I'm looking in the mirror, and what about closing range? Do I want to just stand here statically and not move and just practice those punches? We might. That might be a good place to start, but soon we want to do what?
Move forward and then move back.
Yeah, we want to move forward, hit, and come back. And each time I'm on the balls of my feet, I've got my knees together, my elbows are down, and I'm protecting my face, my chin, and neck. So punch, and come back, and back, and back, right? Okay? And then we could add in a kick if we wanted to. Now I can change directions. So punch, and what kind of kick? Roundhouse kick. Yeah, okay? I could extend that leg. I could leave the knee up. It could just be a knee. In this case, most of the time, what we're going to focus on for this particular seminar is just hands. Okay? We can add kicks, we can add throws, we can add grappling. All of that we will do later. Okay, as we get more advanced, we're going to start with just the kicks. I'm sorry, with just the hands, the punches. Okay? So just like you said, maybe take 15 seconds to just do some striking, some shadow boxing in the mirror. Change direction, change range, just get used to being able to strike fluidly, without restriction, and some good strikes. Without a partner, there are a few things that we could do. We could do individual techniques, one at a time. We've talked about that. So if we're in a line like this, and I say, okay, we are going to do, let's stick with fistic strikes, let's do a shuto, okay? With our lead hand, or our short hand. So we're in a good fighting stance, ready? We're going to do a step forward, do a shuto, and then step back with our left hand, ready? Let's see that technique, let's see that hand weapon, okay? Yeah, we're going to be hitting with that part of our hand right there. Now we're just going to come and we're going to go, bam! Okay, that's one way to do it. We can also do it from the outside, but for now, let's just keep it quick, bam! Okay, great. So, we're here, we're going to step forward, ready? Ichi. Knee. San. So that's individual techniques one at a time. Pick a mix is another way to do it. And so we just pick, you could pick any number, but let's keep it easy, we'll pick 3. So we're going to pick 3 techniques. And I threw up on the board a knife hand, or a shuto, a knee, and an elbow. I know I said we were going to stick only with hands, but I threw a knee in there just because it makes it a little more complex. They don't need to connect in any order. They don't need to be related. I can just throw 3 techniques out there. Remember, I'm not necessarily fighting an opponent, so it could be really in any order that I want to do them. And I can do a, what do we say, a knife hand, a knee, and an elbow. Okay? So we can just make up how that works. We could come and do a knife hand, a knee, and an elbow. And that could be our technique. Okay? That could be our pick-a-mix. Okay? Or it could be knife hand, knee, elbow. Okay? Any one of those, doesn't matter. All we're doing is we're picking 3 techniques. We're going to film it, and then we're going to go back and evaluate it. Okay? So let's do knife hand, knee, elbow. We go shuto, knee, compression, and back. Shuto, knee, compression. Okay? Another thing that's good to do is to be able to finish strong. So we go shuto, knee, and an elbow. Do I just stop right there and do the next one? What do I do? What do I do at the end?
Get your guard back up and then take it.
Yeah, get in a good fighting stance. This is the right time to start thinking about a good fighting stance so that we are entering and exiting while being able to defend ourselves. All right. So we're talking about hitting with a bag. We talked about hitting without a partner, okay? And some of the disadvantages to that. And just to remind you, the disadvantages are that you're not working with an actual partner, so you don't really have a good understanding except in your head and your imagination of what range means. And nobody's going to help you if you don't defend yourself and keep a good guard the whole time. Okay? So let's talk about disadvantages with hitting this bag. What kind of disadvantages do you think are there with hitting this bag?
It can't respond and move around.
Yeah, it's not moving around with you. Just like you said, so I could get complacent with my protection by lowering my guard and thinking that it's okay to be in here with my guard down at this range. It's not. But my bag's not going to tell me that. Right? What are some good things about hitting the bag?
You have something to hit.
Yeah, you get to hit a bag, right? Now, do you want to just come up and right away just start wailing on that bag as hard as you can?
No.
Why not?
Because maybe you could hurt yourself.
You could. Here's another thing. Some bags are harder than others.
Yeah.
Right? So we had a bag in Connecticut that was almost like a rock.
Yeah.
Okay? And when you went to hit that thing, it wasn't like hitting a soft bag like this, it was like hitting a rock. And that was no fun at all until you kind of figured out how to hit it and you were hitting correctly. Another thing, if I have bad form and I go to hit this bag, so in other words, if my wrist is bent or I'm hitting with the wrong knuckles, and for some reason I have bad form, and I go to really wail on this bag, I'm really going to hurt myself. So the way that you start working on a bag is slowly and with good form, and of course with hand protection, which is why you have some gloves. So it's real important to protect your hands. Okay? So over there on the board here, we have combinations. So we can change range. That's another good thing about a bag. There is some value in being close like this and just wailing on the bag, but there's also value, which we're going to talk about now, of starting out at a longer range, moving in, hitting, and then moving to a different range and still being in a good fighting stance. Closing range and striking at the same time with combinations. So we'll pick, one way to do this is to just pick, let's do a combination of 1, and we're just going to use hand strikes this time, but we're just going to pick a strike, do a combination of 1, move in, use it, move out. What strike do you want to use?
Just a punch.
A short punch, a jab? Okay, go ahead. Good, start changing your angle. Right, keep that hand up, hands up high, chin low, protecting your face. All right, now let's do a combination of 3. So give me 3 different techniques. So before you used a short, long, and an elbow.
Yes.
Okay, short punch, long punch, elbow of some side, alternating sides.
Yes.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's pick that as our combination, and go ahead and do that for 15 seconds. Go ahead. Change your angle, move around. There, go far. I'll start slow. So we could do this with a combination of 1 strike. We could do it with a combination of 3 strikes. We could do it with 5 strikes. We could do it with 2. And each time, we could just pick 30 seconds to do that combo to work with our bag. Make sense?
Yes.
Good. So the next method, training method that we've defined here is with a static partner. So what do you think I mean by a static partner?
Someone that's like a person that's sitting still with you.
Yeah, so in other words, it's kind of like a technique that we're used to doing. So where you will offer a technique, I will accept the technique, you will move in and do a strike for me, and then let me do the technique around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do these techniques a lot of times, not with just strikes, but with throws and with kicks and everything else, okay? And a lot of times in these techniques, early on, when you're learning the new techniques, sometimes we will force a strike in there as you're doing it. So in other words, let's pick one, the kote gash, okay? So let's have you come over here. You do that push, I block, and then as I move around, here's my strike. Boom, right?
Mm-hmm.
As I come around, and then I can set this in, turn and through, okay? So that technique, in the base technique that we learn, already forces a strike into. But there's other techniques. Think of another technique that you've done recently. It doesn't have to be just striking, it can be any technique.
Two-handed push.
Two-handed push, okay? This one's a high strike, so if I'm here, this is a high strike to my face.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and do that to me. You're doing a short, high punch. Okay? So I'm blocking, and then I'm stepping in. Okay? Now in this case, I'm creating a fold in your spine, and I'm protecting my chin and my neck by keeping my head high and into you as I do that fold. And I'm getting to right here, okay? Once I then move to the side and move behind you, I can get right behind you and push you away. That's a two-handed push. Almost all of these techniques assume that we're going to have strikes in them. So where do you think you could find some strikes in that technique? Nowhere in anything that I just did was there any strikes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I didn't punch you or kick you or knee you at any point during that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But one thing that we assume as you become more and more advanced is that you are going to add those strikes in there because they do need to be there.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm going to do the technique to you. I want you to find 2 strikes that you can do to me as you're doing those techniques.
I can elbow you here, or I can
Punch?
you and knee you, and I can do an uppercut here.
You could, yep. So that's going to send me this way.
Yeah.
Okay, and that might be good because once I'm here, it's easier for you to dive down here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just do that. So strike. Go ahead. So go here, here, and then down. Okay? That's what I like to look. Okay? Good. Okay, so that's just an example of how we can find two strikes that are not in the base technique that we're going to use to make this technique better. Okay, and that's not the only one. You use two fistic strikes. You could also put knees in there. Go ahead and strike, or you could put feet in there. This could be here, wham. This could be here, wham. Okay, that could be coming in here. All right?
Yeah.
Lots of different ways to do it.
Okay.
Make sense? Another thing that the static partner forces you to do, which is good, because none of the training techniques up to this point have made you do this, is reposition. Okay? So in other words, if you're doing that strike at me, and I just stand right here, go ahead, I'm gonna get hit. Now this was not a good strike by you at all. What you did right there didn't teach me anything. I need you to come in and be able to strike me, so if I don't move, you're gonna hit me in the nose. I don't want you to actually hit me, but you should look like this. Okay? Because if you do this to me, I didn't learn anything. Okay? You're not forcing me to move. Okay? So go ahead and do that strike to me again. Good. So right there, if I don't move, you're going to extend and hit me. Okay? So what this does, and this is the first training method that does it, is it forces me to move out of the way of your strike. Okay? So let's do that again. So you offer. Good. I accept. And here, I have to move out of the way. If I don't offset, you're going to run through me. That punch would have been right here on my nose and would have knocked me back. So this is the first thing that forces me to be able to move out of the way. And that's very important. It's really, really important that when we are training together, that you give me a strike that forces me to move. Okay, if you don't, I'm not going to learn this lesson, and that's bad for me later on. Okay? All right, so that forces me to reposition. All right, so let's talk about disadvantages. So we're talking about training method that is with a static partner. So what are some disadvantages to that? We've been talking a lot about the advantages, which are you force me to move out of the way. You are a person that I'm actually going to get to interact with, so I can get a lot of good training out of being able to use you as my uke when I'm learning how to do techniques. Okay? What disadvantages do you think we have here? Why is this not the only thing that we do?
Because they're not moving around to try to like block.
Yeah. So it's just you doing a technique statically to me, a strike statically to me, and me doing all the rest of the work, and maybe eventually throwing you as well. So I don't get that real-time feedback. You're not, as I reposition incorrectly if I do, you're not going to turn around and punch me in the nose. Right? I'm not learning how to adjust to a moving partner in a dynamic situation. But this is exactly how you get all the repetitions and build those auto-responsive pathways in your head to be able to react to an incoming strike. Okay, so it's super important. It has to happen. We have to spend a lot of time here, but we also need to realize that your partner, you, are not responding in real time, and so it's hard for me to learn to close range safely because you are not forcing me at all times to keep my defense up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. And this is also the first time where, as we are kind of working on our own, if you throw a strike at me, as you throw a strike at me, it's the first time, even if I'm doing another technique here, okay? Even if I'm doing another technique, I start to see what's open, okay? Even if this is my technique, I start to see that that might be open as well, okay? And I start to see that that might be open, okay? And I start to see what it might feel like to step on your foot. I start to see those things. It's the first time that now I can start to see your weaknesses as we are moving around. So now we're going to talk about another training method, and that is your partner, or me, holding pads. And it's great, because now you're going to get, you don't get to script what's going on. In other words, you're not writing it down on the board and remembering it, so you don't know what's going to happen. And this is really easy to learn. And we're going to split it up into 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, and 4 strikes. And that'll just be those. If I say a 3, you know which 3 are going to happen. If I say a 2, you know which 2 are going to happen. If I say a 4, you know which 2 are going to happen. So it's always going to be prescripted like that, which is an advantage and a disadvantage. Advantage because you get to hit something. Disadvantage because
you're not having someone fighting you back.
yeah, because it's scripted. right? You know what you're going to be doing once you recognize what pattern you're going to do. Okay, so it's a wonderful way to learn movement. You're going to be closing range and striking at power while protecting yourself. And this is the first time, as we get more and more advanced, that I'm going to be able to give you some feedback. Okay? I can give you feedback if we're doing static with a partner, but it's more talking through it. Now I can give you some real-time feedback as you're moving. Okay, so put your guard up. In other words, if we're moving around, what is this? Jab, cross. Okay, what's this? Jab. What's this? Jab, cross. Good. So if all of a sudden I see this jab, cross, I see you dropping that hand, go ahead and drop that hand when you come in, and when you finish. Right, I'm going to be able to come here and say, hey, don't forget that hand. Okay? I can just put my hand right here to the side of your face, or what I can do, go ahead, is I can go, right, and I can remind you, hey, that hand's way too low, man, bring it back up. That can give you some real-time feedback.
Okay.
So that really helps you kind of understand how to close range safely. I can help you. And another disadvantage is if I have these pads on, I'm a little bit limited in how I can strike back at you. Okay, so that's another disadvantage. I can't give you a full set of real-time feedback. If it was just you and me in hands, and you threw a punch, right, I can reach down and grab you here and say, hey, this foot was in the wrong position.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't do that if I've got these on. So that's a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's hit some pads. Now, of course, this can expand into knees and legs and everything, and that is awesome and great. Again, all we're talking about right now is a progressive striking training methods, so we're just going to use hands. Okay? So what's this?
Jab, cross.
Good. What's this? Good. What's this? Good. And then there's a 4 as well. With an uppercut. 2, 3, 4. Okay?
Yeah.
So if I say 1, boom, 2, 3, and 4. Good. And exhale with each strike. Now, the other thing that's important when we're doing this is that I reset. Okay? So I don't want to accidentally have my hand up like this while I'm thinking about something else and you to think I'm giving you an indication to strike. Why is that?
Because you wouldn't be ready for it and it could maybe hurt you.
Yeah, because you're going to hit that pad. Go ahead. And if I'm not paying attention, boom, that's going to come back and hit me. Okay, so to protect myself, I have my hands here. Okay? And then I'm going to feed you a strike. Boom. And then I'm going to feed you a strike. And I can move around, and that really helps you be able to move around too. Good. And I can say, hey, don't forget to get your guard back up. Something could always be coming back. Does that make sense? So I can say 2, 1, 1, 2, 4. And the other thing that we can do now for the first time is I can start moving around too. Okay? Ready? Perfect. So that's what's really good about pads. So let's see if we did it over here right. We got 1, 2, and 3 and 4 count drills. This was just an example that we could use. You could make longer drills. You could add in knees. You could add in strikes or kicks, and make these great. Now let's talk about disadvantages. What is a disadvantage of you learning to do close strikes right here? So in other words, do your 3. Boom. That hook right there is meant to be done at close range, right? What's the disadvantage of you learning to be at this range while you're doing that strike?
Because if it has to be closer, and I'm used to doing it out here, I could miss if I'm actually
Yeah, so you're learning to do this with speed, with power, which is awesome, but you're learning how to do it at an incorrect range. And we know we're doing that, and as long as you recognize that that's what's going on and we talked about it, when we're doing this, when you're practicing that short range strike, you just need to know and be aware that for that really to happen, okay, you're going to have to be a lot closer. So I'm just going to sit here like this and go ahead and get your range correctly so that you could do all 3 of those strikes.
Okay. Wait,
So come on in and get your range correct. Don't hit me, just set up. So like, boom. Okay?
Okay. Boom, boom, boom.
Right, so look at that, you missed. Okay? So you're still too far away.
Okay.
You need to be this much closer. Okay?
Yeah.
So here, I'll just stand right here so you can. Good. So this punch needs to be here, this punch needs to be here, and if my feet don't move, I'm at the wrong range. Okay? So I go bam, bam, and then I have to get in even closer to do this strike. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because the range at which this is affected and this is affected is different for that hook punch. From this range, I will miss with that hook punch. Okay? I have to be even closer for that hook punch to work. So I have to realize when I'm hitting pads that my range is artificial. Okay? And I'm learning how to hit at a longer range than I would actually be doing. And there is a big difference in feeling for me being here hitting the pad and me being here doing that hook. This is a lot closer. Okay? So that's a disadvantage of hitting with the pads. So if I was doing this 3-step technique and actually hitting a person or a dummy or a pad, I need to recognize that I would need to change range there between those strikes. This is good, this is good. Now I have to get even closer to be able to get this through. Okay? And that doesn't happen when we're using this. Make sense? All right, ready? The other thing that I can start doing now is ranging, okay? Because you're getting real comfortable staying close to me, but all I need to do is stick my hand out like this, okay? I'm not trying to hit you, I'm just gonna put my hand out like that every once in a while to make sure that you are at a long enough range that you wouldn't get hit, okay? I can do that with my hand, I can do that with my foot, okay? I just push kick, so hey, make sure you keep control of that range, okay? Good. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is the last training method that we've defined here. So this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th training method. And this is controlled speed without pads. Okay? No, so we're both wearing some hand protection, and that's so that we can do some pad work with our hands, and our hands are protected, and that if we accidentally hit, there's a little bit of cushion there, both for my hand and for wherever you get hit, or I get hit. Okay? Now, controlled speed without pads. Talking about some disadvantages.
Control speed without pads.
Are we making a fight club here?
No.
No. So I can't hit you as hard as I can. You can't hit me as hard as you can. Okay, because this isn't a fight club. This is training. This is a training method to learn how to strike. Okay? So we have to have some rules. And that is a bit of a disadvantage. So what we're going to do is we're going to go slow, and we're going to go with little to no contact. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, if I've just been holding the pads for you with the last training method, which is holding pads, then I know when you strike how much it hurts. Right? Boom, boom, boom. Right? I know those are good solid strikes. These will be. Good. So I know that those are good solid strikes, so that when I'm here and I punch, go ahead and move out of the way and punch me, boom. I know that would really get it. Okay? So I will give you a reaction that will be closer than nothing based on your strikes. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm not just going to stand here and let you punch, 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 and be like, haha, it didn't faze me at all. Right? Okay. Now that will force me to open range, and now we have to open range. Okay? So that's an advantage that we can give some feedback, and a disadvantage that we're not striking at full power. Okay? The other biggest disadvantage is that we can't just drop ourselves into this training method. Okay? If I don't know a whole bunch of techniques, and if I don't know how to hit, and if I'm not comfortable closing range while protecting myself, which is what we've been working on all the other training methods, if I'm not comfortable with that and I try to drop in here and do half-speed techniques, kind of responsive techniques, we're not going to get anywhere, we're not going to learn anything. So we have to know all of those other things for this to be effective. Does that make sense? All right, what else do we have here? So usually we'll wear some gloves like this. We wouldn't have to, but it's best, I think, to protect ourselves. So we can develop a little game. In this game, what's going to happen, and the reason that we're wearing these pads, these is because I've got some protection there on my hands and some protection from the padding on your hands. So I can lightly hold up some pads. So 1, 2, 3, or 1, or 2. Okay, I can hold those up and give you a break so that we can kind of reset between drills. So in this drill, what we'll define is I'm going to think of it this way. I start, I hold, you start, you hold. That'll make sense here in a minute. Okay? But I'm going to start striking you. You're going to reposition, get out of the way, strike me twice, and then I'm going to strike you twice, and then I'm going to hold for you and give you a boxing pattern so we can reset. Okay? And after that, you'll hold, or you'll enter, you'll strike, and then you'll hold. Okay? And we'll just kind of keep going back and forth like that. And this is half speed. This isn't meant to be fast. This isn't meant to be hard. We're not meant to hit. This is just a way to start looking at how your weaknesses show up in movement, how my weaknesses show up in movement. Okay? So we can start to do this interactively. Okay? So we'll start here. I'll start, I'll hold. You start, you hold. Okay? Ready? Good. Started, hold. Good. You start. You hold. Now I start. Good. And I hold. 4. Good. You start. Good. And boom, boom. Training methods that we talked about were without a partner, in the air, shadow boxing, with a bag, okay, with a static partner, so doing basic waza, we've already defined. Then we talked about holding pads, okay, and finally we talked about controlled speed without pads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different training methods. None of these methods on their own are going to make us a great striker, okay? So we don't want to let anybody ever convince us that we can go and work just one of these areas and be great all the time. That's just not true. Each of these feed on each other, each of these build on each other, and we have to go back and work each of them over and over and over. So for advanced techniques, and that's in this right up too, we start to change our assumptions. Our assumptions from the beginning were a single standing unarmed opponent with no restrictions in mobility or visibility, and we're not going to strike each other with power. So we slowly, in a controlled manner, and one at a time, start modifying those assumptions. And that's not something that we should be doing on our own, because each time that I remove a restriction or I remove an assumption, I increase the risk that somebody gets hurt. Okay? And so we want to have a CAMA teacher or a teacher who understands this to be able to be there to help us modify and mitigate that risk. Instead of using a standing opponent, use an opponent on the ground. So we've got grappling dummies that we could use to simulate our with a bag training method with a grappling dummy on the ground, right? We could restrict our mobility. Okay, so all of a sudden now we're doing this over in a corner or with a wall. I can't move back, so I have to move to the side. So that's another way to remove an assumption. We could restrict our mobility. We could decrease the lighting. I could turn off some lights and change my visibility. I could increase the lighting. I could put a halogen light right there facing right at me so that I have so much light that it's harder for me to work. Okay? I could manipulate the heaviness of the clothing that we're wearing. I could put on a big leather jacket. I could put on a biker jacket. Have you seen the jackets that people wear when they're riding a motorcycle? They have armor, right, in them. You know, so maybe if I have one of those jackets on, then these are different. Okay, so we start removing those assumptions. We could increase the level of exhaustion while we're training. Right? We could do just a regular aerobic exercise, or even an anaerobic exercise, to the point where we are so tired that when we stand up, we're just so tired, and then we could do these techniques. Okay, and we could learn how it feels when we are working to failure, when we're working to the point where our body fails because we are so tired. We could decrease our striking power restrictions, so we could say, okay, now I'm going to be able to make a little more light contact. We're still not going to hurt anybody. We could increase the number of opponents. Okay, so now we could have more than one opponent that I'm having to react to, and we could include lights. Okay, so all of those are ways that we could do more advanced training with this same training method to become a better striker. All right, well, I hope that was helpful for you. that striking progression and the way we broke it out into different training methods, how they build on each other, and kind of what the advantages and disadvantages of each are. And as you think more and more about those disadvantages when you're doing a particular type of training, it'll really help you be able to get the most out of every type of training that you do, from working at home on your own to working with a partner that doesn't have any training, a mom and dad, a brother or sister, somebody who you could do some static partner training and just say, hey, look, all I want you to do is step in and raise your arm at me, and then just be still. You're not making contact, you're not hurting anybody, you don't require an amount of training from somebody to still be able to get pretty good value out of a static partner. Okay, so let's talk about some homework. I've got 5 different levels of homework or things that you could film at home. Some of them require an additional person, not just yourself, so it's not 100% solo work. The first 2 are solo work though, and they're really based on the training methods that we've talked about so far. So the first thing that you could film on your own is a pick-a-mix, and by a pick-a-mix I mean you pick out several different techniques that you're going to work, several different individual strikes. You throw them up there on the board, you do them in any order that you like, and you film that for us. And so they don't have to be related. It doesn't have to be something that feels real good. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's good if it doesn't flow. So pick 3 strikes, pick 4 strikes, put them in a particular order, film it, and go ahead and send it in. The next, if you've got a bag to hit, then you could do some combinations. So this is with hitting with a bag. You could film your best 1 strike combination, your best 2 strike combination, your best 3 strike combination. Make sure you're including some movement, some opening and closing range, and some movement around the bag if you can. Okay, now if you've got somebody to help you, then there are some other things that you could film. So third, if you're using a static partner, remember this doesn't need to be a static partner that is trained in martial arts. This could just be somebody that you're having help you. Hey, stand there, move toward me, raise an arm, and then just stay still and let me go ahead and move around and do a technique. So you could have a static partner help you add a strike to a technique that you may already know. So go part way into the technique, add strikes that we've talked about, and you could film that. 4, again, if you have somebody else who can help you, you could film your best 1 count, 3 count, 4 count, and 2 count patterns with somebody holding the pads. So you would need somebody to help you hold pads on that one. I know that's not easy for everybody, but it's an option if you do have somebody who can help you out. And finally, number 5, filming a half pattern. So this is the controlled speed. This is where we don't have gloves. I don't require anything else. I'm not going fast to the point where I'm going to hurt anybody, but I do need somebody who can kind of hold up some hands and let me hit them, and somebody who can walk in and at least hold a strike for me. So that may be something else that you can do if you have somebody who is there who can help you out, even if they don't have any martial arts training. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things that you could film. So I challenge you to do that. Love to see them. Please send them to me. Please send them to Raymer Sensei. We'd love to take a look at them and see how you're doing. Hope you had a great time, and hope you have some good time off.